Good morning, dear viewers of Smart 24 TV. We are blessed to come back again on this weekend to have this special program, The Point. And my name is Dr. Joseph Tindiebwa, a public policy analyst and management expert. I'm blessed to be with a dear guest alongside me here, the great gentleman I just add on that one, and from the sector of education. They have wide experience that they would like to share with us as we'll be dealing with a topic of discussion that is education that Uganda deserves. We will be looking at education innovations and effective teaching. We also have a major question whether, looking at, will innovations and teacher salary enhancement steer progress of education sector in Uganda? It's a pleasure to be with you, dear guests, and let's start from the extreme end with my dear friend, Mr. Conan Musinje. I usually refer to him as the powerhouse of recruitment and marketing at Victoria University. Please, dear, kindly greet the viewers.
Thank you. I greet you, viewers, this morning. Thanks so much for spending a bit of your time to listen to us, and thank you so much, Smart TV, for inviting us on this show. It's very good that we get to share with our viewers the issues that actually affect every home. If you have a home and education is not anything that you pay attention to, then you need to reconsider, because education and health are the cores of every home. And we do believe it's important for you to really pay a bit of time and listen to a number of issues we're going to be raising. And I'll get part of the conversation and see what you can actually learn, but also maybe contribute when you have an opportunity to make a case.
Thank you so much. You come, please, always on our invitation, and you are part of us. You are ready to promote the education agenda. Together with us in the middle point, we have my friend as well, Dr. Isaac Magora. Dr. Isaac Magora is, I am referring him as a passionate, labor unionist, and especially, from the University Professional Academic Staff Union. He's the General Secretary and is the former Dean of Faculty of Entrepreneurship and Business Administration. Sir, you're welcome. We earn a lot from you and the dear viewers as we go through all this. Please kindly greet the viewers.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much for sparing your time to be with us this morning as we share issues to do with education, which, as my colleague here said, is very critical to every human being.
Thank you, sir. I cannot miss to introduce to you the Vice Chancellor of Victoria University. He is a passionate educationist, and I align all this discussion to ensure that you outside there, you don't miss some of the strong comments that some of you've been asking, who is this gentleman saying this? I will not repeat some of them, but they are so inspiring. Dr. Muganga Lawrence, we are blessed to be with you, sir. Kindly greet the viewers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tindiebwa. It's always a pleasure to be here on Smart 24. Dear viewers, good morning. I hope God has really blessed you on this amazing morning. We cherish Him, we adore Him, and believe in Him for our protection and good health. So thank you for tuning in. I hope and I believe, since we are all called to believe, that the discussion, the conversations we are going to have with these amazing people seated with me will be things that touch your real life, that address what is going to happen in the nearby future. And we will all be in that future and call it a better place just because we interacted and we are protected. So thank you very much for tuning in. Keep tuning in.
Thank you so much for that great, greeting. And we'll continue with our topic of discussion that is referring to education that Uganda deserves. This is not a new phenomenon. In my preamble, I would like to bring to the attention of the dear viewers in this weekend, while many Ugandans, you are sparing no coin in your pocket and sending your children to school. And also, the government, in her wisdom, were able to invest part of the resources and reasonable resources to promote the education that possibly that is expected to be favoring all. and with a different way of modifying or looking at the reforms that were introduced on board in our country for some years ago, the last 35 years. One of it was pointing on the liberalized education, especially the privatization of education, and of which initially the early 70s and 80s, we only were benefiting through the education that was only, favorable through the public service provision. And we again recall, besides this, that the education we inherited, it is the education that does not, by its origin, which is, of a setup or originating its type, its policies from the Ugandan or African context. When I was studying some years ago and talking about, good years, around 30, 40 years, the role or the impact of Europeans in Africa and basically Uganda, they could refer one of it that they introduced a, education system, and which we always form education, and they said that was 3 R's, where you can know how to read, to write. We also recall a number of occurrences, especially some of our fathers of the nation, especially those who are no longer living. We'll call, like the late Milton Obote. Some, during their time, they were able to benefit education from abroad, because by that time they were pointing on the sons and daughters of the chiefs, and they go to get a bit improved, whether I call it improved education. And this seems to be happening in another style in Uganda. Those who access education also in different, there are different classes. There are those who are going even what we call international schools. Then there are those who are accessing, scholarships. Whereas that's not the major topic, central topic of discussion. We are looking at the recently, adopted, number one, policy reforms and innovations. There is part of it which is prominent that is referring to the digital education, and of which is really a great innovation, especially in the changing global community, of whereby that the equipping the students right off from the primary level, secondary level, university, looks to be very important, both for the teacher and the one who is to be taught, our pupils and the students, so that the digital takes shape. Without, unveiling the whole, discourse of our discussion, I'd like to welcome, Dr. Muganga Lawrence to have some great sharing in this. But as we'll be coming on, there is another dilemma, which it's a controversy, not a dilemma, but controversial in terms of what can make education happen. That's something I want us, dear guests, to also look at. And some of our practitioners, the education society, they said, no, we need good pay. And the scientists, one time, they were, through their unions, they were very hard. They said, no, we need good pay. University lecturers, at a certain time, there was when they said, no, we need good pay if we are to deliver. Then also those who were from the arts, they also say, why can you add scientists and you're not adding us salary enhancement? And it remains lingering in the minds of policy analysts to think and to dig deeper whether the good education we are talking about, the effective teaching, does it depend on salary enhancements? We also look at that in a different interval. Dr. You're welcome, please. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and for giving that incredible preamble. You've talked about very, very good things. Can the pay really enhance the appetite of a teacher to produce meaningful education? Not quality, but meaningful. It can be quality, but it may not be meaningful. Let's step back a little bit. All of us here, and probably all the viewers, I doubt if there is no one who has achieved whatever they have achieved, or who have walked through the journey they have walked without going through the hands of a teacher. All right? And also remember that these teachers are human beings, like you and I. like everyone watching us, they have families. They have children that go to school. Some schools they teach in those schools, other schools are other schools where they send their children. They fall sick like every other human being. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that the necessities of life are very essential to every human being, and they too are human beings. Now, as a teacher, I'll also add this. If we were to talk about teachers, there is someone who likened teachers to candles that consume themselves trying to light the path for others. The teachers sacrifice themselves all the time to make sure that these students, kids we send them, see a brighter future. All right? Another person, I think that's Henry Brooks Adams, if you read these books, he goes an extra mile to say that he likens teachers to eternity, like they are eternal in such a way that you can never know where their influence stops. Everyone who has gone through the hands of a teacher, this is someone that will be morally acceptable to society if the teacher was really a good teacher and delivered what was expected of them. Now, what do we need to make these people do their job or their respective jobs? We need to support them. We need to motivate them. We need to show them that we care about them because they are the second parents of that child that you will live for 8 hours in the hands of a teacher and you don't want to be with them. Some parents wake up at 5:30 a.m., drive their cars if they're driving cars, put their kids in their back seats and drive them to school and go to work. You have trusted this child with a teacher. If this teacher is not well rewarded, then also expect not so good results. But if we reward them, and we're not saying exorbitant pay, we can try our best to improve their package. You know, there's something we Christians believe in, which is the Bible, right? Yes, sir. And I think it is Philippians 3, 12 to 13, somewhere, where he says that I have not achieved these things. I will be pretending to say that I have achieved perfection. But I press on, I keep pressing on to that goal. There is one thing I focus on though, which is forgetting the past, concentrating on going forward, and to see what the future has for me. All right? That's the Bible. Bring that to education. Reform, transformation is very, very important. Let's forget what has happened in the past. Let's concentrate on the now and the future. We are very sure we have not achieved a good welfare for our teachers. He's an advocate of human beings for their well-being. Dr. Magola will tell you. We have not been there. But can we try to do something such that we achieve that perfection? We may not even achieve perfection, but can we get closer to that goal? Can we forget the past and concentrate on a better future for these teachers, such that they can be better teachers for our children?
One question, sir.
Yes.
In the midst of all that good that you're saying,
yes,
but when all that care is taken for, making happy our teachers, as you said, they may not be paid exorbitantly, but something should be done. And all that as we work towards perfection. But the education Uganda deserves, even when there have been quite, care taken to improve on the salaries of teachers compared to the outcome. To your either brief overview, do you think there is a correlation?
So here is the thing. Yes. You cannot pretend to have the education that Uganda deserves when you are not factoring in the most important variable, the teacher. If you go down that path, then you are like saying, oh, I expect a great wedding December 31st, but you don't even have a bride. So meaning you are actually washing a brighter white as snow bed sheets and putting them in a terrible place full of dust. So if we are talking about great education that Uganda deserves, there is one actor, important stakeholder.
The teacher.
Not even the minister, not even the policymakers, not even the directors or commissioners, not even us, the vice chancellors, the teacher. The teacher is the oil that that engine deserves. So we can say all we want, because the teacher implements every policy you're talking about. So I heard, I think it was Conan shared with me that link this morning in the monitor, the Minister of State for Higher Education, Honorable Dr. John Chrysostom Muyingo, was saying that come the time when the new policy, education policy, which was cabinet approved in 2019, come that time when it is implemented, every teacher will have the same salary.
Yes.
I welcome that news. Every teacher, primary and secondary, will have the same salary. That is good news. It's music to us who advocate for teachers on a daily basis. It is music to teachers. The question is when, right? The question is when. Now, can we reduce the when? Can we compound it? Can we bring it forward? Okay? Can we even start with something small? We may not go to that dream that is so big of giving them something bigger. Can we start with something? But there's also catch-24. For that policy to be implemented, every teacher has to have a degree. All right? So that means it's kind of a motivation in a way that they have now to go back and take a 3-year degree program. Those who have grade 5, they have a diploma. Maybe they can be exempted 1 year and have 2 years and get that degree. So in that time frame, they still have something between 7 to 6 years to have a bachelor's degree. Now that means that is not going to be real in the foreseeable future, which is 5 years. It has to come between 6 to 7, after 6 to 7 years. But can we put in place a system that would fast track also the grade 3 teachers who still have a long way to get a bachelor's degree? Can we make the grade 5 teachers also fast track them to get a bachelor's degree and not the 6 years, such that we bring them forward and they get a decent pay? Then we also, as we also advocate and preach for an education that Uganda deserves.
I appreciate you so much for your first submission. But what I'm able to recall in our analytical point of view, just I sum it up all, teacher-centered education is all that indeed you have emphasized, and I believe it is important. Dear viewers outside there, it is very important always to recall that the teacher is important to drive the education Uganda deserves, and the kind of education Uganda deserves.
You said something about change.
Let me just change something.
I was wondering if you're going to let that pass.
Yeah, no, I will not let it slide. I want the viewers to note this difference.
Yes.
He talked about teacher-centered education. In the pedagogical approaches of education, teacher-centered education is something I castigate. I don't believe in it. But his context is different. He's saying that anyone who drives learning is a teacher. We are focusing on the teacher. But in the pedagogical approaches of education, yes, we want the students to be in the driver's seat, lead their learning, be at the center of learning.
Yes, sir.
Their learning be personalized. Let them bring out their passions, their natural abilities, their interests, and the teacher. I have a book that is coming up, coming out very soon.
Okay.
And it redefines the role of a teacher.
The record is clear.
The record is clear.
Yes.
In 2 months, Ugandans, you have this new book. You want to see education that Uganda deserves, like you put it, read this book. It redefines the role of a teacher. We now cease to call, I would love to ask us to stop looking at a teacher as the master of everything, as the custodian of all the knowledge. No, but I want the teacher, because sometimes people overprice us, teachers. When I say overpricing, they tend to hype us and put us there as if we are demigods here and we know everything. No. Sometimes the students teach us things. Right. We learn from them. We learn from these gadgets. Technology is taking us as if we don't even have anything in this world. Therefore, we are redefining the role of the teacher. The teacher is now becoming a guide. The teacher is becoming a coach. Yes. The teacher is becoming a mentor. The teacher is becoming a facilitator of learning. The teacher is becoming a project manager. I am presuming these students who are different by creation, different passions, different attitudes, different futures, they have different projects, and the teacher is coordinating them.
I appreciate you again.
So that's what I wanted to clarify.
For making a revelation of the role of the teacher. And as he was very careful about it, he indeed immediately switched on and recalled the educational philosophy. It is described in that dimension. Of course, shouldn't be teacher-centered. These days we modify it.
Learner-centered.
Learner-centered,
student-centered.
Yeah, I agree with you so much. I'm going to welcome Dr. Magora. I appreciate you, sir, for your submission. And in the next session, we'll be looking at what drives you. There is a project I understand you're about to begin at. We're under, Victoria University, or partnering with whosoever is willing to partner with you on identifying the best teacher and be rewarded.
Correct.
It is quite interesting. Sir, Dr. Magula, welcome, and we appreciate for your continuous services in the academia.
Thank you, thank you. No, I would like simply to build on what my colleague has been amplifying, especially starting from even your introduction about the reforms in the education sector. Those reforms were not in isolation. They are linked to the reforms in the economy as a whole. Now, if you reform the economy, you liberalize the economy, you also liberalize the education. It means you're having two things. One, the market is liberalized. And these are teachers living in the market.
That's true.
So that's why the point he made is very important. The teachers are going into the market, which you have liberalized. There is no longer any subsidy for teachers. If I may use the army as an example, in the past there used to be something called the army shop, where soldiers would buy commodities at a cheaper price. So even if you didn't increase their salary, but you have subsidized their market, then they will survive. So you're having teachers with the pay that is not commensurate with what the market demands. And the education is also a market. Their children are going to this education, which you have liberalized, which is expensive. So you find that if you are not paying them commensurately, they will have to find other things to do to meet that gap. And when they find other things to do, they are cheating on their role as teachers. Because teachers in the past, we were working 24 hours. After teaching, they have to go and look at the scripts, so the students work with a lot of passion. Even write notes for where they find the student has gone wrong, in order for that student to catch up. But secondly, they also have to research in order for them to inform. So if you take away that time because you are looking for survival in other things which are not education, it means you are going to give half-baked education. So that point is very critical. It affects the products we bring out because teachers are struggling to make ends meet. The second point is psychological. You said I'm in a union, the professional academic staff and union. Why we see these elements of pay and facilitation, environment of work, for, gadgets to use as very important, is that they have a psychological impact on the teacher. Because if the teacher is all round facilitated and is comfortable, is happy, that happiness triggers more motivation in that teacher to deliver.
That's true.
Therefore, if you want a student-centered education, the facilitator who is guiding the students must even be more informed, he must even do more research in order for him to guide the students in a different way than the usual way of just giving a lecture and give notes and you go away. Facilitation is even more complex than just simply lecturing. So you find that psychological element is critical, and it is impacted by the economic well-being of this teacher. Imagine a teacher coming to teach when his child is at home, has not paid fees. It is not something simple. When he doesn't know whether his children will have supper. Yeah. It becomes psychological. Eventually, it impacts.
Or their child has gone to school without even packed lunch.
Yes.
It's sad.
It becomes very sad. You are teaching children here who are happy, but in your mind, you know that your child is somewhere suffering with hunger, which is very difficult. So I thought those 2 points should be emphasized. The question of the liberal market, then liberal education, and how it impacts on teachers and how they would deliver. And this ties in with your topic, where you are wondering what would make education happen. Is it pay or it is not? It is not simply pay for the sake of it. Yeah. It's because this pay is for something within a given market dynamics.
Doctor, you've been participating as a dean. Indeed, you've been active, especially with your valuable input in designing curriculum and courses, all that. In the process of it, you are very aware that there are a number of innovations at different levels, both in tertiary institutions and secondary level of education, of where part of it, the element of the digital, the digital education, and other new innovation in terms of modifying the curriculum review. There's a certain time where one of the institutions here in this country, students had to go for we call it a strike, whatever kind of protest they made against, what the university was calling online learning as part of the innovation. So to you, as we look at the education that Uganda deserve, and yet the way how the citizens are responding to change management from the traditional way of teaching and acquiring knowledge and compared to the new dimension seems not to be matching and going faster to an expected rate, and also coverage in terms of the population. What do you think is missing to be in place, and what is the significance to advance this approach of education?
I will start by maybe just making it clear that digital or digitalization of education has 2 elements. So many times we forget. One of them is delivery. Delivering education online. That somebody, wherever you are, you can receive education at whatever time. And you can be assessed. You don't have to move to a physical facility of brick and mortar for you to be able. But the second one is research, where if it is student-centered, with today's internet, the student can find all the information that the teacher will give using these digital devices. And once the student finds that information, then the interaction or the interface between the teacher and the student is now a discussion, exchange of you are just facilitating more in-depth learning than simply delivering, because the student has already extracted this information from the system, which is already available. Now, coming specifically to your question, is that these students, that was actually resistance. When they say, no, you are saying we go online, but for us we want physical, face-to-face.
Because some they didn't have the computers, some they didn't have power where they were, during the time of
yes,
COVID.
Those are all symptoms, or if I can say, maybe they are catalysts. But this is the resistance to change. Many times when there is change, there is bound to be resistance, especially if information is not well distributed. People may wonder, may fear the if I'm here alone, learning, would I learn to the extent I would learn? If I was in a classroom with my fellow students, maybe ask questions, we interchange, and so on. So the fear of the unknown can make these students resist. So there is a need for sensitization. There is need, not coercion. There is need for education for these students to appreciate that they may even learn, they will actually access more education. They will be more educated if they use this digital education at a distance than the old one. 2 is the question of you are saying computers, they don't have computers.
Yes.
Others were saying we don't have.
Some of the areas like I'm in Karamoja, and you are saying that I go online and I cannot access electricity at all. At my home, I'm using maybe
A candle.
So that's
You have a point there. It's the point I was coming to.
Yes.
The cost of, first of all, one, electricity, but also the distribution of electricity is important. Secondly, the cost of data, the internet, the data, how expensive is it? Then the speeds, because if you are aware, this thing is just turning around, rotating, where others have not accessed, because you have different levels of network, is also an issue. So the students had some points in terms of saying the data is expensive. Secondly, saying where I am, the internet is very weak. Others saying we don't have gadgets. So those are things that need to be addressed, but in a manner of education, learning from each other, not coercion. Because if you coerce these people, they may not learn as you expect them to learn.
Thank you so much for your, guidance in that policy guidance and direction. If we are to promote and enhance education innovation, we need to bear in mind to apply the best approaches, and of which the calls for inclusiveness, ensuring that there is creation of awareness to those who are to be the users, and those who also partner to ensure ends be met, especially the parents and so forth. Mr. Conan Businje, I will take you to the dimension of the role of the public sector, especially I'm talking of the government, the ministry, the education sector, the Ministry of Education, in ensuring that the education innovations and effective teaching is delivered to Ugandans for socio-economic transformation. Because we've had education from the beginning. It's not a new phenomenon, but the education we seem to be having is having too broke. That some people who are saying, I've gone into education, but my life has not changed. And the others are saying, oh, I've going to education, oh, I've built a house, oh, education. And some they say, this pen can never get, spoil it. They can never load. And they say, please, hang on. What is your view over that? In order to have the education Uganda deserves, the role of the government is critical, much as it's not only the government as per se, those who are in authority. But there is a linkage with the population. But the government, praise the Lord, is on the drive. Please, you have your own opinion.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor, and thanks for the viewers for sticking with us. If you ask me for my honest opinion about this whole thing, about especially government funding or public funding of education, the truth is that government has made its contribution. You have a right to say, this is not what I expected. The question is, what have you done yourself as an individual? Because this is going to be an individual contribution at every step. Because government is us. Government is me and you. Government comes from us. And the things we do formulate what later on the people who are governing us get to do. I'll tell you something that is very real. If you expect the government to foot every bill of everything we need to do to transform our education, then we are going to get it wrong. And I keep saying that because a number of things that we need to transform our education require your contribution, my contribution, and every parent or every student who is watching us today morning on this show. And I'm glad Smart 24 has this show because it helps us get everybody's collective responsibility and contribution to make sure we can transform our country's education. I'll give you an example. Government has, for instance, started universal primary education. It's been here for decades. We have universal secondary education. We've got people who are studying, actually, we have people who are studying on government scholarships. On top of that, they've set up several schools. They've set up several institutions. Is that enough? No. It's a straight answer, no. What should we do? Government can never foot completely that bill. But they've done their contribution. But obviously, I've always argued that it is wrong for anyone to argue and say whatever government kind of education, like people who completely undermine free primary education and free secondary education. I can assure you, if they didn't offer that free primary education and free secondary education, we would be in a terrible state as a country. The issue is that what was given, is it enough? No. But what do you do in such a situation? Now, that requires education investors. That's why they liberalized education several years ago, to be able to unify the contribution that we give with the work with the government to make sure we make a difference. I'll just quickly give you an example. The kind of teachers we're having in this country. Who pays teachers? If you look at the primary sector in this country, the biggest chunk of actual primary schools in this country is under government. So the question is, what do you do in such a case? The teachers need a better pay. How do you get a better pay? A better pay obviously also requires you to have quality education. You are trained. If you look at several teachers we're having in this country, at primary level, most of them are grade 3 teachers. And I'm glad there is a teacher policy where Dr. Mganga alluded to it, where they require them now to go for degrees. The question, what do you do that caused the bit I was talking about, me and you making a contribution. As a grade 3 teacher, what have you done to yourself? What have you done for your life to make sure you go back, upgrade, and equate your level to a degree level, get your level of education to a degree where you can get a better pay when the policy formulation that is in place gets to act at the point where they increase your salaries. I'll tell you, when I finished my secondary education, or even I think that was the time I joined the university, teachers were earning around 200,000? Yeah. Around that, less than 300,000, exactly. But government has more or less, in the few years for the current time, they've doubled that. The question is that enough? No. They even deserve 5 times, 6 times that. But what are you going to do to get there? It requires us to do and follow what if a number of things government is putting into place. If you're going to get quality teachers, it requires us to pay them very well. But to pay them very well, there are things they need to also to do to make sure they are better teachers. If you're a grade 3 teacher, you quickly have to go back and do your degree. You might say it's very expensive, the kind of money they pay us, we can't afford going back for further education. That's a mistake.
You tell us you have a program at Victoria University of supporting the teachers in acquiring education.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now you've come to a point where me and you have to contribute to serve the government. That's the contribution.
There's this thing they used to call a triple P, yes. Public-private partnership. And that's what the point he's alluding to.
Okay, come on.
Everyone has to pay something.
To pay something. And for us, our price is here. Our contribution on the table as Victoria University, for the teachers.
Grade 3?
Grade 3.
Yes.
We are saying come right now, currently, do a higher education certificate, which is just 9 months. And we're going to make it very cheap for you and very affordable. And you can easily come and study at less than even 1.5 million shillings for a complete certificate course. You bridge, get into a degree, we give you the 3 years of education. If you can't come to Kampala to study all the time, you can study from wherever you are. Online. And if you can't study while working, or because we can decide to teach you at night, we can teach you over the weekend, online. But if that is complicated, then we're saying, fine, come study during the whole defined service program, where you pay 400,000. At 400,000, we can help you be able to start your education, doing service at 400,000 every time you come, and that is enough for you before you know you have your bachelor's degree. Now, what much more do you want that is actually beyond what we've put on table for you?
So in other words, as you are promoting that agenda,
yeah.
And back to our topic of discussion,
yeah.
In order to have effective teaching,
yes,
the teacher, what is invested in the teaching in terms of knowledge?
Knowledge acquisition.
Knowledge-based.
You need to better yourself.
Yes.
And when you better yourself as a teacher, you have a right to demand a better pay. I'm not saying they shouldn't demand a better pay where they are. They will, but they will be limited. Okay. Because there are limitations of payment. So if you're going to go to another U grade of payment, then let's get a degree. Then we see how government will not increase our salaries as teachers. I come from a family of teachers, that's why I'm saying we. So the reality is, it's important we support our teachers, get quality education, but also us as individuals or as institutions, as companies, as organizations, as NGOs, we must look at what we can. I'll give you a simple example. People say government should provide lunch in schools. I did a bit of mathematics when I was still a journalist.
Lunch is important.
Yes, I realized if you had to provide lunch, you're completely going to use the entire budget of the Ministry of Education to provide lunch in schools. Yes, I did the mathematics. Next time when I come, I'll give you the real figures.
Can't we go for cost sharing, but we make it a point?
That's the point. Now we are together. Let's cost share. Contribute something. I contribute something. We serve our government. Because right now, it's not education where we need to serve our government. You have to build roads. You've got to have solid security. You've got to do several other things alongside education. So we can't, health, hospitals are still in dire need, so we can't pump all the money in education. But there are simple things, even policy tweaks. You're a policy analyst, you're a policy man. I like your area. These are the things we should be talking about. What policies can we retweak? I like Dr. Mganga, because a number of times we sit in the office and say, we need to guide the government in changing some of these policies,
Exactly.
so that we are flexible enough to serve our people.
I want to come in briefly.
One day I will tell you that even right now, we somehow actually believe, maybe I shouldn't be bringing this, but the reality is, we somehow believe teachers actually probably should, after grade 3, they have equated the level of senior 6. They should be joining university straight, without even the higher education certificate. But that's a debate of another.
The case now.
It's not the case, and
It's not the case.
It's not the case.
And yet they have done 2 years after all of it.
Equivalent of senior 6.
Take it from what Conan said, and I'm really, if there is any government official, quote me on this, and I'm advocating for this very, very clearly. You have a grade 3 teacher, whom it is said that cannot proceed directly to university education, right? Mark my words. But you have a senior 6 person who has 0 experience
In teaching.
Nothing
He has never
whatsoever,
even stood
but
before class.
completed 2 years after O level. And you say, welcome to higher education.
Do your
You
degree.
do your degree of your
Stand in
choice.
front of the
You are
classroom.
great. You are better. But remember, the grade 3 teacher did the same 2 years, and
10
more
years
so,
experience.
was entrusted by the country to handle and teach children. They have been teaching children. They have experience. They have learned on the job. And they are not asking to go and do engineering. They are not asking for medicine. They want to go and study what they have already studied and know best and practiced education. And we are saying, please, there is a roadblock. First go and do a diploma. Those are 2 years.
Higher education,
After wasting some other 2 years.
Yes.
And then join the what?
The degree
What
program.
kind of thinking is that?
And yet there is also another one who feels for didn't go to teach and so on.
Yes.
But after some period, he is allowed to do mature
Mature entry.
And
shortcuts
go to
themselves
And shortcuts
to
into the system.
Sometimes we need
What
to,
are we doing?
You know the system, what they call system
Yeah.
thinking? We need to simply not choke
The system.
our own system or our own growth.
Yes.
There, of course, I understand there are things they call them instruments that have been passed by parliament, by what.
Some of them need to be folded and
But what
written.
is
It's
logic?
written.
A person who has been entrusted by masses of kids to train and teach and develop, and no one has ever complained of their incompetence.
But do you have any advocate who is trying to push for that?
We are
Listen
doing
to
that
this,
now.
Listen to this. The kids that have gone through the hands, assume Dr. Mganga is a grade 3 teacher. If I have taught for the last 17 years, that means there are kids who have joined the university
Yes.
that went through my hands.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to do
And they
it.
say you don't qualify to join a degree. But you see, that's going to be a debate.
Yes.
We want to carry on for another day. The way he has stated it, that is a big problem. Now you're asking for a contribution. And I've said, as we talk about public contribution to education, don't really lean on them so much, because they have so much on their plate as government. And the reality is that we are going to come and make a contribution. And if someone is listening to us, they will understand what we are doing. Sometimes we have people in government who don't want to pay attention to what you're doing. Even when you get to speak to them, I'm not saying everybody, but some. But if you pay attention to what we are trying to put on the table, our little contribution, you will see that at the end of the day, if we work together, we can turn a revolution in this country's education system. And another thing I was talking about, some teachers can't afford even coming to the university to study. Some of even their sons and daughters, some of them have sons, they can't even afford to come to the university and study. We are saying, okay, teachers, we understand how much you earn. We understand you have children who want to get degrees and be in good universities and get better jobs. What do you do? So we've said, now look, we are going to give you bursaries. Where you pay almost half the price. We take off functional fees. Our functional fees almost range from 350 to 740,000. We are saying, let's knock off almost that 1 million shillings for you. You pay the other 1 million shillings, because for sciences it's 1.2, then for arts around 938, for all the courses in humanities, in business, in science and technology. Exactly. So we're saying we can knock off almost close to half of that money if you have a letter from the district. You get a chairman LC5 to write for you, we confirm that it is from Budaka, Amulu, Padel, Kotido, Kakumiro, Bundibujo. Because we know what we are trying to do. We want to create a revolution that a child in Karamoja, a child coming from Kotido, a child coming from Masaka, and the one in Kampala, they are on the equal footing. So we give education to everybody in the country. We would have wanted to bring 100 students per district, but we can't afford that. We'll start with the little we can. And all you've got to do, go to your LC5, get a letter, come, we give you cheap education. So your teachers, if you have children who are struggling, we are going to help you. Meet a little bit of your children's cost of education. And it's not only for teachers, for everyone. But since we're talking about teachers, let's stick to teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Conan Besinje. And your information is valuable. But my worry, and which maybe it can be catered for, is you ensuring that this information beyond this television, digital sharing of this information, so that it can reach to a number of people who are interested. Because I think you maybe have strategies. You are the person who doesn't teach you.
First of all, you are on GoTV. So my understanding is that everybody on GoTV, and soon DSTV will get you. Those who are on free air, they should be able to pick you. One of the things why we trust Smart 24 is because you reach every part of this country.
Okay, we are going to go for a break right now. We'll be coming back after our commercial break. Dear viewers of Smart 24 TV, as he says it, we are on GoTV 394, and the information we bring to you can be able to save your income, and even the policy advocacy we bring. We believe with the time, a number of attention has been given, even part of a discussion. We appreciate you, policy stakeholders. We can make Uganda a better place to live in, even by adopting new reforms. See you in the next session after the commercial break.